Imagine a crisp June morning in 1941, the sun just peeking over the horizon, and Adolf Hitler stands at a map table in his headquarters, his finger hovering over the vast expanse of the Soviet Union. In our real history, he gives the order, and millions of German troops surge eastward in the biggest invasion the world has ever seen, codenamed Operation Barbarossa. But what if he pauses? What if doubts creep in? Or maybe a different advisor sways him, and he decides no, we're not going there, not yet, maybe not ever. What if Hitler never invades Russia? Folks, that's the tantalizing question we're diving into today. A wild ride through an alternate World War II, where the Eastern Front never erupts into that meat grinder of a war, and everything changes, alliances shift, battles rage in unexpected places, and the skies over Europe become an even deadlier arena for those brave pilots in their roaring machines. Stick with me, because this story is packed with twists, heroism, and those what-if moments that make history so addictive. Oh, and if you're as hooked on these tales as I am after all these years spinning yarns about the war, do me a favor right now, hit that subscribe button to join our community of history buffs. Give this video a big thumbs up if it gets your pulse racing, and share it with your friends who love diving into the past. Because together we keep these stories alive. All right, let's jump in. You see, to understand this alternate path, we have to start with what really happened. Because the road not taken only makes sense when you know the one we did take. Back in 1939, Hitler shocks the world by signing a non-aggression pact with Stalin. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, carving up Poland between them like a pie at a family dinner. Germany invades from the west, Russia from the east, and boom, World War II kicks off. Hitler then turns west, blitzing through Denmark, Norway, the Low Countries, and France in 1940. With his Luftwaffe dominating the skies, those Messerschmitt Bf 109s screaming overhead, outmaneuvering the outdated French and British fighters in dogfights that left the Allies reeling. But Britain holds on, thanks to the Spitfires and Hurricanes in the Battle of Britain, where radar and home advantage turn the tide, and Hitler's dream of invading the island fades. Now, in real history, Hitler gets itchy about the East. He's obsessed with Lebensraum, that living space for Germans, and he sees the Soviet Union as a Bolshevik threat, full of resources like oil from the Caucasus and grain from Ukraine that could fuel his war machine forever. Plus, he underestimates the Red Army, thinking they're weak after Stalin's purges wiped out so many officers. So on June 22, 1941, he launches Barbarossa with over 3 million troops, 3,000 tanks, and 2,500 aircraft, catching the Soviets off guard at first. The Luftwaffe smashes thousands of Soviet planes on the ground, over 2,000 in the first day alone, according to declassified German reports, and the Wehrmacht advances hundreds of miles in weeks. But oh boy, the problems pile up. The vast distances, the mud and snow of Russian weather, the endless supply lines, and then the Red Army fights back with a ferocity no one expected. Millions of soldiers pouring in, T-30 for tanks that outclass the German panzers early on. By December, they're at the gates of Moscow, but the winter hits hard. freezing engines and men alike, and the counteroffensive pushes them back. That Eastern Front becomes a graveyard Germany loses over 4 million men there by war's end. Not to mention the aircraft. The Luftwaffe, which started so strong, gets bled dry. Experienced pilots like Erich Hartmann rack up hundreds of kills on the East. But the overall force dwindles as replacements can't keep up. And fuel shortages bite because they're not getting that Caucasian oil. Meanwhile, the Allies in the West get breathing room to build up. With America joining after Pearl Harbor in December 1941, and the air war shifts as British and American bombers start pounding Germany, escorted later by those long-range fighters that turn the tide. But in our alternate history, let's say Hitler listens to reason for once. Maybe his generals like Halder or Guderian convince him the risks are too high, pointing to Napoleon's disastrous Russian campaign in 1812 as a warning from history. Or perhaps intelligence reports exaggerate Soviet strength. Or Hitler gets fixated on finishing Britain first, seeing the Mediterranean as the key to starving them out. Whatever the spark, he calls off Barbarossa. No invasion. The pact holds, at least for now. Stalin, paranoid as ever, keeps shipping resources to Germany: oil, manganese, grain as per the agreement, keeping the German economy humming without the cost of conquest. Now, think about that ripple effect. Germany has its full strength intact, no diverting 75% of its army to the east. No losing hundreds of thousands of men in the first months. The Luftwaffe stays whole, with pilots and planes ready for other fronts. In real life, the Eastern Front ate up over 80% of German air losses. Here, those resources pour elsewhere. First off, the Battle of the Atlantic heats up big time. Without the Eastern Drain, Hitler can throw more U-boats and long-range aircraft like the Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condors into sinking Allied shipping. In 1941, U-boats were already terrifying, the Wolf Packs as they called them. But imagine more of them, with better air cover spotting convoys. Britain might really start starving, their imports cut in half or more, forcing Churchill to sue for peace or at least a truce. I've read pilot memoirs from that time, like those from RAF Coastal Command, where flyers in Sunderland's describe the terror of spotting a Condor overhead. Calling in subs. In this alternate world, those sightings multiply, and the skies over the ocean become a no man's land. Then there's North Africa. In real history, Rommel's Africa Corps does wonders with scraps, pushing the British back to Egypt in 1941-42. But supply issues and the Eastern pull limit him. Here, no Barbarossa means more tanks, more men, more aircraft flow to the desert. The Luftwaffe's Ju-87 Stukas and Bf-109s could dominate the skies over El Alamein, supporting ground troops without the constant recalls to the east. Maybe Rommel takes Cairo, links up with forces pushing through the Middle East tech, with Soviet neutrality. Perhaps Germany persuades Turkey to join, or at least allow passage, grabbing Iraqi and Iranian oil fields. That changes everything. No fuel shortages for the Reich, and the British Empire cracks at the seams. Picture the dogfights over the pyramids. Mustangs wait. Not yet. But British Hurricanes versus German Messerschmitts, pilots sweating in the heat. Tracers arcing through the blue sky as they twist and turn. One anecdote from my years digging into these stories. I once read a declassified report from a captured German pilot who flew in Africa, describing how the sand clogged engines, but the thrill of strafing Allied columns. In this timeline, those victories mount up. Now, let's talk aviation, because that's where my heart is after all these decades telling tales of the wild blue yonder. In real WWII, the air war was pivotal, and without an Eastern Front, it transforms. The Luftwaffe doesn't lose 20,000 aircraft and countless aces to the endless Soviet skies. Pilots like Adolf Galland, who commanded fighters in the West, could have more squadrons under him. In 1941, the Battle of Britain is over, but the Blitz continues sporadically. Here, with extra bombers freed up, Germany might resume heavy raids on British cities and factories, delaying the RAF's recovery. And when America enters, assuming Pearl Harbor still happens. As Japan's actions aren't directly tied, the air buildup in England faces a stronger foe. Think about the strategic bombing campaign. In reality, by 1943, Allied bombers are hammering Germany, but the Luftwaffe is stretched thin. Here, no such stretch. More flak guns, more night fighters like the Heinkel He-219. Perhaps earlier deployment of jets like the Me-162, since resources aren't siphoned east. Engineering reports from the time show the Me-162 was delayed by engine issues and Hitler's meddling. But with more focus, it could enter service in 1943 instead of 1944, screaming across the skies at 540 miles per hour, outrunning Allied fighters. I've pored over those reports, feeling the excitement of those engineers pushing boundaries. In this alternate, they get the support they need. Now, on the Allied side, the pressure mounts. The RAF and USAAF have to contend with a Luftwaffe at full strength. Daylight raids become bloodbaths, without the Eastern diversion pulling German fighters away. In real history, the P-47 Thunderbolts and early P-51 Mustangs start escorting B-17s in 1943. But here, losses could be double, forcing the Allies to stick to night bombing like the British, which is less accurate. Pilot memoirs from American aces, like Don Gentile, described the terror of facing swarms of FW-190s over Berlin. Imagine more of them, fresher pilots. But wait, suspense builds. What about D-Day? In real 1944, the Luftwaffe is a shadow over Normandy, with only a few hundred planes against thousands of Allied ones. Here, without Eastern losses, Germany could muster 2,000 aircraft or more, turning the beaches into a storm of strafing runs and bombs. Allied paratroopers dropping at night face searchlights and flak, while Spitfires and P-51s duel with Me-109s in massive furballs. Would the invasion even succeed? Maybe it bogs down, like a reverse Dunkirk, with the Wehrmacht counterattacking under air cover. Or perhaps the Allies delay, building even more strength, but time favors Germany too, with V-weapons ramping up those V-1 Buzz bombs and V-2 rockets raining on London without interruption. Rhetorically, Can you feel the tension? One wrong move, and Europe stays under the swastika longer. Shifting gears a bit, let's consider the Soviet Union in this scenario. Stalin isn't idle. He's building up. Rearming after the Winter War with Finland showed weaknesses. In real history, Barbarossa forces him into alliance with the West. But here, the pact holds. Maybe even trade increases. But trust me, from what I've read in declassified NKVD documents, Stalin was plotting. He might strike West in 1942 or 1943 when ready, catching Germany off guard while they're tangled in the West. Or perhaps he stays out, watching the capitalists bleed each other, then sweeps in later. Either way, the war drags on. Aviation-wise, the Red Air Force grows unchecked, losing 5,000 planes in the first weeks, like in real Barbarossa. Their Yak-1 and Lag-3 fighters improve, perhaps exported or lent to Germany in a twisted alliance. Wild, right? Now, as the war evolves, America ramps up production, the arsenal of democracy, as Roosevelt called it. But without Lend-Lease draining to Russia in real, billions in aid, including thousands of aircraft like P-39 Aircobra, more goes to Britain and the Pacific. Still, facing a united Axis Europe is tougher. Japan might fare better too, since no German defeat in Russia inspires them differently at Midway or Guadalcanal. But let's zoom in on those sky warriors. I've always loved the human stories take a hypothetical German ace, say a composite from memoirs like those of Johannes Steinhoff, who in this timeline stays in the West, piling up kills against American bombers instead of Soviets. He describes the roar of the Merlin engine in captured Mustangs. But wait, the Mustang itself, the P-51, that sleek beauty with its laminar flow wings and drop tanks for range. In real history, it enters in 1943, transforming the air war by escorting bombers all the way to Berlin and back, shooting down Luftwaffe fighters left and right. In this alternate, with a stronger Luftwaffe, the Mustang becomes even more crucial, perhaps rushed into production earlier, or modified with better guns. Engineering reports from North American Aviation show it was designed for the British initially, with the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine swap making it a legend. Here, maybe more variants, like night fighters or ground attack. Picture squadrons of Mustangs tangling with jet-powered Me-62s over France. Pilots pushing their machines to the limit, vapor trails crisscrossing the sky. One personal touch. In my long career, I've interviewed veterans who flew them, their eyes lighting up as they recall the smooth handling, the power dive in this what if. Those tales multiply, heroes on both sides. As 1943 rolls in our alternate timeline, the air war intensifies. Without Eastern commitments, Germany bolsters its radar chain, the Kammhuber line, making night intrusions deadlier for RAF Lancasters. Day raids by the 8th Air Force suffer horrific losses, remember. The real Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission, where 60 B-17s went down. Double that here. Generals like Spots and Eker might pause the campaign, giving Germany time to perfect wonder weapons and submarines with more air support. The U-boat threat lingers into 1944, delaying Overlord. Meanwhile, In the Mediterranean, after taking Egypt, Axis forces push into India perhaps, straining British resources. Aviation plays key Italian and German bombers from Crete hammering Malta non-stop, finally neutralizing it, allowing convoys to Rommel unmolested. From battle accounts, like those in the Desert Air Force logs, Allied pilots in Kitty Hawks face overwhelming odds, retreating under fire. But hope flickers. American ingenuity shines. The P-38 Lightning, with its twin booms, gets more play in Europe, zipping in for photo recon or fighter sweeps. And the B-29 Superfortress, in real for Japan, might deploy to Europe earlier against hardened targets. Suspense builds will the Allies crack the nut. Now, let's ponder the human cost. In real WWII, the Eastern Front claimed 20 million Soviet lives. Here, spared, but perhaps shifted west. More civilians bombed in Britain, more sailors drowned in the Atlantic. Yet, without the Holocaust accelerating in the East Einsatzgruppen followed Barbarossa, maybe fewer immed. Yet atrocities, though Hitler's evil doesn't vanish. From reliable sources like Yad Vashem documents, the invasion enabled mobile killings. Delayed here, but still looming. Emotionally, its heavy families torn, pilots lost young. I felt that weight writing these scripts, wondering about the boys who never came home. Pressing on, by 1944, assume no Soviet entry yet. Germany, flush with resources, fortifies the Atlantic Wall like never before. More bunkers, more aircraft based in France. When D-Day comes, say in summer 44, the skies are contested fiercely. Allied gliders and C-47s face flak and fighters. Typhoon's rocket-attacking tanks meet FW-190s in reply. From pilot accounts, like those in the 354th Fighter Group, Mustangs provide cover, but losses mount. Perhaps the beachhead holds barely or fails, leading to a stalemate. Alternatively, with stronger Germany, peace talks emerge. Churchill ousted, a negotiated end. But no, America pushes on, atomic bombs still in play. Hiroshima and Nagasaki happen, but maybe Berlin gets it first if the war drags. Wild speculation, but grounded in facts. Aviation evolves faster. Germany's Arado Art 130 for jet bomber scouts Allied fleets, while Allies counter with Gloucester meteors. Excitement peaks in these hypotheticals. We've covered a lot ground already, haven't we? If this alternate history has you thinking about what could have been, pause for a second and hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Like the video to show your support. Drop a comment with your own what-if thoughts like, would Stalin have attacked anyway? And share this with fellow history lovers so we can all geek out together. All right, picking up where we left off, let's dive deeper into 1944 and beyond in this no-Barbarossa world. With Germany not bogged down east. All right, let's dive back into this alternate World War II, where Hitler never invades Russia and the world spins on a different axis. We left off in 1944, with Germany stronger than ever, its Luftwaffe intact, its army not bled dry on the Eastern Front, and the skies over Europe a blazing battlefield where every decision could tilt the scales. Picture it. The Allies are clawing their way toward D-Day. But the Atlantic Wall bristles with more guns, more planes, and a Luftwaffe that hasn't lost thousands of aircraft to Soviet flak and fighters. I've spent years poring over pilot logs and battle reports, and let me tell you, the air war in this timeline would be a spectacle terrifying, brutal, but awe-inspiring, like watching gods hurl thunderbolts. So, grab a seat by the fire. Maybe imagine we're swapping stories over a crackling hearth. Because this tale's about to get wilder. Let's see where this what-if takes us. With those brave pilots in their Mustangs, Messerschmitts, and maybe even early jets rewriting history one dogfight at a time. In our real 1944, the Allies pull off Overlord, storming Normandy with over 12,000 aircraft supporting the invasion. Facing a Luftwaffe so weakened by the Eastern Front down to just 300 planes in France. According to declassified chaff reports, that it barely shows up. But here, with no Barbarossa, Germany has the resources to double, maybe triple that number. Imagine 800 or 1,000 aircraft Bf-109s, FW-190s, maybe even those Me-162 jets screaming in early. The Allies still have air superiority, thanks to American production churning out 100,000 planes a year by now. But it's contested like never before. Picture the dawn of June 6, 1944. Waves of C-47s dropping paratroopers over Normandy, their chutes blooming in the moonlight, only to be met by searchlights and flak tearing through the sky. German night fighters, like the Ju-88s with their radar, pounce on the transport planes, while Spitfires and P-47s scramble to fend them off. I read a memoir once from a Dakota pilot who described the chaos of flak bursts. Lighting up the night multiply the terror here, with more enemy fighters waiting. On the beaches, Stuka's dive bomb landing craft, their sirens wailing, while Typhoon's rocket attack panzers only to be jumped by FW-190s. The Mustangs, those sleek P-51s with their Merlin engines roaring, try to clear the skies, but they're facing veterans, not the green replacements of real history. Aces like Gallant or Marseille, who in our timeline racked up kills elsewhere, are here in the West, dueling over the channel. One pilot's account I came across think it was from a 56th Fighter Group Thunderbolt jockey described the heart-stopping moment of spotting an FW-190 in his 6, guns blazing. In this world, those moments are tenfold. Would D-Day succeed? That's the big question, isn't it? The Allies have numbers over 5,000 ships, 150,000 men on day one, but a stronger Luftwaffe could disrupt air cover, delay reinforcements, or hammer the Mulberry harbors. Let's say the invasion holds, but it's a meat grinder. Omaha Beach becomes a bloodbath worse than reality, with German fighters strafing troops pinned down. Maybe Utah falters, or the airborne drops scatter to widely under fire. From battle reports, like those in the U.S. Army's after-action files, we know air support was critical to breaking German lines. Here, it's stretched thin. The Allies might secure a beachhead, but progress stalls, like a truck stuck in mud. Or maybe, just maybe, Eisenhower delays Overlord to 1945, needing more time to amass overwhelming force. That gives Germany breathing room to fortify, to churn out more V1 buzz bombs, those doodle bugs that terrorized London in real history. With over 9,500 launched per British records. Here, double that, raining on England, maybe even New York if Germany perfects the America bomber. A pet project of Goering's that never took off in our timeline. Engineering reports from Messerschmitt show designs like the Me-6 could have reached the US East Coast with light bomb loads. Imagine the panic. If one hits Manhattan in single quotes for now. Let's zoom out to the broader war. Without an Eastern Front, Germany's economy is stronger. Fueled by Soviet trade oil from Baku, metals from the Urals, all flowing under the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. In real history, Germany's fuel shortage crippled the Luftwaffe by 1944, with pilots like Wilhelm Batz complaining in memoirs about grounded planes. Here, that's not an issue. Airfields brim with aircraft, and training schools churn out pilots who aren't rushed to their deaths in half-baked planes. The Luftwaffe might field 15,000 aircraft by mid-44, compared to the 8,000 in our reality, based on production estimates from Speer's own records. This means more pressure on Britain. The Blitz never really stopped in this timeline. Instead of petering out after 1941, German bombers Heinkel He-111s, Dornier-Do to 17s keep pounding London, Coventry, maybe even Liverpool, targeting docks to choke off supplies. RAF Fighter Command is stretched. Its Spitfires and Hurricanes scrambled daily. I've read letters from RAF pilots like those in the Imperial War Museum archives, describing exhaustion after endless sorties. Here, that fatigue sets in earlier, maybe breaking morale. Churchill's speeches still rally the nation, but cracks show maybe a peace faction gains traction. Led by someone like Lord Halifax, pushing for a deal. In the Mediterranean, things get spicy. With North Africa secured, let's say Rommel takes Suez in 40 to Germany, and Italy control the sea lanes. Malta, that unsinkable aircraft carrier of an island, falls under relentless bombing from Sicily, its defenders starved out. Without the Eastern Front, Axis airfields in Crete and Libya swarm with planes. Italian Macchi C-202s, surprisingly nimble fighters per RAF test reports, join German Bf-109s to dominate the skies. The Royal Navy, already battered in the Atlantic, struggles to hold Gibraltar or Alexandria. Pilot stories from the Desert Air Force, like those of Clive Caldwell on Aussie Ace, describe outrunning Italian fighters in Kitty Hawks. Here, they're overwhelmed, retreating to India or Australia. The Axis might push into the Middle East, linking with Vichy French forces in Syria or pro-German factions in Iraq. Oil flows freely to the Reich. No Stalingrad to drain it. This changes the air war to more fuel means more sorties, longer patrols. Imagine Luftwaffe squadrons staging from Baghdad, threatening Allied bases in India. The RAF scrambles to reinforce, pulling Spitfires from Britain, weakening home defenses. Let's talk about the Pacific for a sec, because Japan's role shifts too. In real history, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor in December 1941, dragging America in. That likely still happens. Japan's desperate for oil and empire. And Hitler's choice not to invade Russia doesn't change their calculus much. but a stronger Germany emboldens Japan. In our timeline, by 1942, Japan's overstretched, losing at Midway, then bogged down in Guadalcanal. Here, with Germany dominating Europe and Africa, Japan might hold its gains longer. No Eastern Front means no Soviet declaration of war in 45, so Japan keeps Manchuria. Maybe reinforces the Pacific. American carriers face tougher fight Zeros and new fighters like the Ki-80 for Hyatt, which matched P-51s in speed per U.S. test flights. Naval aviation gets hairy. Imagine Hellcats and Corsairs tangling with swarms of Japanese planes over Iwo Jima. Losses mounting. I've always loved carrier pilot tales, like those of David McCampbell, who described the chaos of dogfights, where you couldn't tell friend from foe. In this world, those battles are fiercer, longer, with Japan buoyed by Germany's success. Back in Europe, the air war evolves fast. Germany, flush with resources, pushes its wonder weapons. The Me-160 jet, a game-changer in real history, with its 540 miles per hour speed, could deploy in 43, not 44. Engineering logs from Messerschmitt, which I've studied, show it was ready, but for engine delays and Hitler's insistence on making it a bomber. Here, with no eastern drain, those kinks get ironed out. Picture Mustangs diving on jets, their pilots shocked at the speed P-51s top out at 440 miles per hour. No match in a straight run. Allied intelligence, per declassified OSS files, knew about these jets early but underestimated them. In this timeline, they're a wake-up call. The RAF rushes its Gloucester Meteor jets, which flew in 40 for an Our World, maybe getting them up by late 43. Dogfights become futuristic jets versus props, a clash of eras. I can almost hear the roar, see the contrails weaving like a painter's brush gone mad. But the Allies adapt. America's production is unmatched 100,000 planes in 40 for alone, per Army Air Forces records. The P-51 Mustang shines brighter here, its range and agility critical. Maybe North American aviation rolls out the lightweight P-51H earlier, hitting for 187 miles per hour, per test reports, to chase those jets. Bomber crews, like those in the 100th Bomb Group's memoirs, describe Mustangs as their guardian angels. Here, they need everyone. What about Stalin? That old fox is still out there, watching. In real history, the Red Army rebuilt after Barbarossa, fielding millions by 43. Here, no invasion means no early losses for 1,000 planes destroyed on the ground in June 41. Gone. The Red Air Force grows, with Yak 9 South and Iltus Sturmovix ready by 44. Stalin might play both sides, trading with Germany while eyeing Poland or the Balkans. Declassified Soviet cables show he considered a preemptive strike in 41. Here, he might wait till 45, hitting when Germany and the Allies are exhausted. Imagine Soviet fighters joining the Framig 3 South tangling with Me-62s over Poland. A three-way air war. Or maybe Stalin stays neutral, building a fortress, forcing the Allies to fight Germany alone longer. That suspense keeps us guessing when will the bear pounce. By late 44, the Allies are hurting, but not broken. American industry floods Britain with planes, tanks, ships. The B-29 Super Fortress, meant for Japan in our world, might deploy to England. Its 20,000-pound bomb load hitting German factories from 30,000 feet to high for most flak. Luftwaffe pilots, per their own accounts, dreaded high-altitude raids. Here, they face them daily, but Germany counters with guided missiles V to south with better accuracy, maybe even early SAMs. Like the Wasserfall project, which existed in prototype per German archives. The air war becomes a tech race, both sides pushing limits. I've always marveled at the ingenuity engineers on both sides, working sleepless nights, knowing lives hung on their slide rules. In this timeline, that race is neck and neck. Human cost weighs heavy. Without Barbarossa, the Holocaust's pace might slow no Einsatzgruppen rampaging in the East, but Hitler's hatred doesn't vanish. Deportations continue. Camps like Auschwitz still operate, per survivor accounts. Allied bombing kills more German civilians, RAF, and USAAF dropped 1.3 million tons of bombs. In real history, here, maybe more, as raids intensify. British cities suffer too. V-weapons and bombers unrelenting. Pilot losses skyrocket. Allied aircrew memoirs, like those of Guy Gibson, describe watching friends go down in flames. Multiply that grief. I've sat with veterans, seen their eyes mist over recalling lost wingmen. This war, though different, is no less cruel. As 45 dawns, as soon D-Day succeeds, but slowly, the Allies slog through France, facing Luftwaffe squadrons at full strength. Arnhem, in our world a bridge too far, might be a total disaster, with German air cover shredding gliders. But America's might grows. Atomic bomb tests are on track, per Manhattan Project files. In real history, Hiroshima's hit in August 45. Here, maybe Berlin or Munich gets it first, if the war drags. Imagine the moral weight. Truman deciding to nuke Europe, not Japan. Or maybe a stalemate leads to peace talks. Germany holding Europe, but not winning outright. The Mustang, ever the hero, keeps Allied hopes alive, escorting bombers, strafing airfields. Its pilots legends. One tale I love, AP-51 pilot, maybe apocryphal, who looped his plane to dodge a jet. Sheer guts over tech. That's the spirit here. Whew, what a ride, right? We're deep in this alternate world, and I'm loving every twist. If you're as gripped as I am, take a quick second to hit that subscribe button. Like this video. Drop a comment, maybe tell me what you think happens next. Or if you'd fly a Mustang against a jet and share this with your history-loving pals. We're keeping these stories soaring together. Now, let's push into 45 and see how this war reshapes the globe, with those skies still roaring. Now, let's push into 45 and see how this war reshapes the globe, with those skies still roaring with the thunder of engines and the crack of guns. In this alternate 1945, where Hitler never kicks off that fateful invasion of Russia, Germany stands tall, its war machine oiled by Soviet resources and unscarred by the endless steppes. The Allies have scratched out a foothold in France after a brutal D-Day that cost them dearly. Beaches stained red, paratroopers scattered like leaves in a storm, and the Luftwaffe putting up a fight that makes Normandy look like the gates of hell itself. But therein, pushing inland, towns falling one by one, though slower than in our real history. I've dug through countless after-action reports from the time, like those from the 9th Air Force, describing how P-47 Thunderbolts hammered German columns with rockets and bombs, only to be swarmed by FW-190s diving from the clouds. In this timeline, those swarms are thicker, the dogfights more desperate, pilots twisting their planes until the wings nearly snap. Picture the Battle of the Bulge, or whatever it morphs into here. In real December 44, Hitler launches his last gasp offensive through the Ardennes, catching the Allies off guard with 200,000 men and a few hundred tanks. But his air force is a ghost only 800 planes, many grounded for fuel, per US intelligence estimates. Here, no fuel woes, no eastern drain. He throws 1,500 aircraft into the mix, Me-109s and jets providing cover as Panzers rumble through the snow. Allied Mustangs and Spitfires scramble in the freezing dawn, contrails etching the sky like a mad artist's scribbles. I recall a memoir from a 354 fighter group pilot, talking about the bone-chilling cold seeping into the cockpit as he strafed enemy trucks multiply that by the extra German planes, and the bulge becomes a frozen slaughterhouse. Maybe the Allies hold, thanks to their overwhelming numbers, but losses pile up, delaying the Rhine crossing by months. Generals like Patton rage at the skies, demanding more air support, while Eisenhower pores over maps, wondering if this war will ever end. Aviation takes center stage, as it always does in my old heart after all these years spinning these yarns. The P-51 Mustang, that elegant thoroughbred of the air, becomes the Allies' lifeline even more than in our world. With a stronger Luftwaffe, the Mustang's long legs up to 2,000 miles with drop tanks. Per North American aviation specs, let it escort B-17s and B-24s deep into Germany, tangling with jets and props alike. Engineering reports I've studied show how the laminar flow wing cut dragged, letting it hit speeds that saved lives. In this what-if, perhaps the US rushes the P-51D variant earlier, with its bubble canopy for better visibility, or arms it with more .50 cal machine guns. Pilot accounts, like those of Chuck Yeager before he broke the sound barrier, describe the thrill of diving on a foe, the Mustang responding like an extension of your body. Here, those dives are riskier, facing me to 62s that zip away at 100 miles per hour faster. But the aces adapt, maybe using Boom-Man-Zoom tactics, hitting hard and running, turning the air war into a deadly chess game. On the German side, innovation surges without the Eastern black hole sucking up resources. The Heinkel He-160 to Volksjäger, that cheap wooden jet fighter from Real 45, might deploy in 44. Swarms of them thrown at Allied bombers like angry bees. Declassified Luftwaffe documents detail its quick build time, just 90 hours per plane. And while unstable, in numbers it could overwhelm. Imagine RAF Tempests, those burly fighters with their Sabre engines, dueling these jets over the Ruhr, engines screaming as they climb for advantage. I've always loved the human touch in these stories. A young German pilot, fresh from training, strapping into a jet for the first time, heart pounding, knowing he's outmatched in experience, but riding the future. Allied bombers face hell. The 8th Air Force, which lost 6,000 planes in real history, might lose 8,000 here. Crew memoirs filled with tales of flak bursting like fireworks and fighters nipping at their formations. Let's not forget the Night War. In our timeline, RAF Bomber Command rules the dark, dropping 650,000 tons on Germany by 45. Here, a beefed-up Luftwaffe night fighter force more Bf-110s with Liechtenstein radar. Per British Intercept report turns those raids into nightmares. Lancasters and Halifaxes weave through searchlights, chaff fluttering like snow. But losses mount. Maybe the Allies shift to precision strikes, using mosquitoes, those wooden wonders, fast as fighters for pathfinding. One anecdote from my digs into history: a mosquito pilot's log describing a low-level run. On AV to sight, tracers whipping past. In this world, those runs are suicide against heightened defenses. But the pressure tells German cities crumble. Morale dips. Though not as fast without Soviet armies closing from the east. What about the Pacific? It's linked, you know. With Germany stronger, America diverts more to Europe, fewer carriers for MacArthur's island hopping. Maybe delaying Okinawa. Japan, sensing Axis vigor, fights harder. Their kamikazes, which sank 36 ships in real 45, might claim more without quick Allied advances. Naval aviation shines Hellcats versus Zeros over the Philippines. But with extra US planes pulled to Europe, it's touch and go. I've read Admiral reports, like those from Halsey, praising the F-6F's ruggedness. Here, they need every bit of it. Perhaps Japan sues for peace earlier if Germany falters, or holds out longer if not. Back to Europe. Stalin stirs. By 45, his Red Army is a colossus over 6 million men, 13,000 aircraft, unbloodied by Barbarossa. Declassified Soviet general staff papers show plans for offensives west. Here, with Germany locked in the west, Stalin might strike in spring 45, rolling through Poland like a tidal wave. Imagine the shocked German troops, thinking the east safe, suddenly facing T-34s and Sturmovix. The Luftwaffe, still strong, but now split, scrambles east. Yak-9 fighters, nimble and armed to the teeth, clash with FW-190s over Warsaw. This twists the war into a three-way mess. Allies pushing from France, Soviets from the east, Germany caught in the vice. Pilot memoirs from the Red Air Force, like those of Pokrishkin, describe the joy of outmaneuvering Germans. Here, they get their chance without early losses. If Stalin waits, the Allies grind on alone. By summer 45, they cross the Rhine, Mustangs clearing the way, strafing bridges and trains. The air war peaks massive furballs with hundreds of planes. Like the real Bodenplatte operation, but bigger. German jets claim kills, but Allied numbers overwhelm. Engineering tweaks help. Maybe the US deploys the P-80 shooting Starjet earlier. It's 600 miles per hour speed, matching the Me to 162. Per Lockheed test logs. Excitement builds, jets versus jets. The future riving amid the rubble. The atomic bomb looms. In real August 45, it ends Japan. Here, if Germany holds, Truman might drop it on Hamburg or Dresden first, vaporizing defenses. From Manhattan Project docks, the B-29 could carry it to Europe. Imagine the horror mushroom clouds over the Reich, forcing surrender. Or maybe Hitler, cornered, unleashes chemical weapons, sarin from stockpiles, per Allied intel. The skies fill with gas masks, pilots choking in cockpits. Human stories tug at the heart. Families wait for letters that never come. Widows raise kids alone. I've heard veterans share over coffee, voices cracking, a Mustang pilot landing with holes in his wings, kissing the ground. In this timeline, more such miracles, more tragedies dot as the war winds down, say by late 45. With or without nukes, Germany crumbles. Berlin falls, perhaps to Allies alone if Stalin stays out, or a joint occupation. The post-war world shifts, no Cold War Iron Curtain so soon. Maybe a neutral Russia, or earlier tensions. Aviation legacies endure. The Mustang, hero of the skies, influences jets like the F-86 in Korea. But let's ponder the Mediterranean endgame. With Africa secure, Axis navies rule the Med. Submarines and aircraft from Crete hammering Allied convoys. The invasion of Italy, real in 43, might fail here, bogged in Sicily under Luftwaffe bombs. Battle accounts from Anzio show air cover's importance. Without it, beaches become graves. In the north, Norway and Sweden feel the heat. Germany, with extra troops, fortifies Scandinavia. Air bases launching raids on Britain. RAF Sunderlands patrol the fjords, hunting U-boats, but face more condors. Espionage ramps up. MI6 and OSS, per declassified files, sabotage German jets. Here, more agents, more drama. By 4:45, exhaustion sets in. Peace talks, maybe, but Hitler's stubborn. Allies bomb relentlessly, Mustangs escorting liberators. We're unraveling this tapestry thread by thread, aren't we? If these twists have you on the edge of your seat like they do me, pause and smash that subscribe button. Give us a like. Comment your take. Would you rather face a jet in a prop or see Stalin join the fray? And share with your buddies who dig deep history dives. Let's keep the conversation flying. Now, as we head toward the war's close in this alternate saga, let's explore the final pushes and that lingering aviation magic. Now, as we head toward the war's close in this alternate saga, let's explore the final pushes and that lingering aviation magic that makes these stories timeless. By late 1945, in this no Barbarossa world, the Allies are grinding through Germany's heartland. But it's no cakewalk. The Reich's defenses are tougher, bolstered by resources that in our real history got swallowed by the Russian Maw. Imagine the Rhine River as a fiery barrier, bridges blown, but Allied engineers throwing up pontoons under a hail of artillery, while P-51 Mustangs streak overhead, their .50 caliber guns chattering as they strafe German positions. I've thumbed through engineering reports from the US Army Corps of Engineers, detailing how those bridges went up in hours despite enemy fire. Here, with a stronger Luftwaffe contesting every inch. Those hours stretch into days, casualties mounting like snow in a blizzard. The air war reaches a fever pitch, with American and British fighters locked in eternal dance with German jets and props over the industrial Ruhr Valley, where factories belch smoke even as bombs rain down. Let's paint the picture of those final air battles, because after all these years telling tales of the skies, it's the pilot's grit that sticks with you. The Me-262, that swallowtail jet marvel, is everywhere in this timeline, hundreds more produced without the Eastern Front's drain on aluminum and fuel, per Messerschmitt's own production logs, which I've seen copies of in aviation archives. They built about 1,400 in real history, but mostly too late. Here, that number swells to 2,500 or more. Pilots trained properly instead of thrown into the fire. They scream in at 540 miles per hour, cannons blazing, shredding the 17 formations before the escorts can react. But the Allies aren't slouches. The Mustang pilots, those cowboys of the air, learn fast group tactics, diving from the sun, using their agility to force the jets into turns where speed doesn't save them. One memoir I cherish is from Robert Goebel of the 31st Fighter Group, describing how he nursed a damaged P-51 home after a scrap. In this world, such escapes are rarer, but the legends grow taller. The RAF throws in its meteors Britain's jet answer, operational since 40 for here, with rushed production. Gloucester reports show they hit 600 miles per hour in dives, matching the Germans blow for blow. As the Allies push east, the ground war sinks with the air like a deadly symphony. Patton's Third Army races for the Elbe, but German counterattacks, supported by Sturmovic's no, wait, in this alternate. If Stalin's still neutral, those are Luftwaffe ground attack planes like the Ju-87G with its anti-tank cannons, ripping into Sherman tanks. Battle accounts from the 4th Armored Division detail the horror of Stuka dives, sirens wailing like banshees. Multiply that with extra squadrons freed from the east. Yet the Mustangs and Thunderbolts provide the umbrella, rocketing panzer columns, their pilots spotting for artillery with smoke markers. Rhetorically, can you hear the roar? Feel the G-forces as a pilot pulls up from a strafing run, tracers nipping at his tail? It's moments like these that turn boys into aces, names etched in history. Now, if Stalin decides to jump in Ando, the drummer, if he does around mid-45, the war flips on its head. Soviet armies, fresh and massive, surge west. They're ill to Sturmovic's, those flying tanks, with 37mm cannons pounding German lines from the rear. Declassified Red Army reports boast over 35,000 aircraft by 45. Here, untouched by early invasion losses, they overwhelm. Luftwaffe aces, split between fronts, face a new nightmare. Yak-3 fighters, light and maneuverable, outturning even the best FW-190s. Pilot accounts from both sides would fill volumes. A German veteran recalling the shock of red stars on the horizon, or a Soviet flyer like Kosedov, who in real history bagged 60 to kills, adding more in this clash. The Allies and Soviets might link up near Berlin, but tensions brew. Who gets the spoils? Aviation bridges the gap, perhaps with joint patrols. Mustangs flying alongside Los Evans South in uneasy alliance. But suppose Stalin holds back, playing the long game. The war drags into 46. Germany a fortress. V-weapons evolving. The V2, that supersonic terror, gets upgrades longer range, cluster warheads, per captured Peenemund documents. London and Paris endure barrages, while Allied bombers strike back, escorted by ever-improving Mustangs. North American aviation's test reports show experiments with rocket-assisted takeoffs for heavier loads. Here, they deploy, letting P-51s carry more bombs for tactical strikes. The air war becomes a siege, attrition favoring the Allies' factories Ford and Packard churning out Merlins by the thousands. I've always admired that industrial might. It's the unsung hero, turning blueprints into birds of war, shifting south. The Italian front in this timeline is a quagmire. With Mediterranean dominance, Axis forces hold the boot tightly. Luftwaffe from Alpine bases bombing Allied advances. The 15th Air Force, based in Italy, faces stiffer opposition Bf 109 kiloseconds, with their boosted engines dueling P-38 Lightnings. Over the Po Valley, memoirs from Tuskegee Airmen, those brave red tails, describe escorting bombers through flak thick as fog. Here, their Mustangs shine even brighter, racking up kills against elite German squadrons. Emotionally, it tugs their fight against prejudice at home, while battling fascism abroad. Stories I've shared around many a fireside dot in the Atlantic. The battle winds down, but not without final spasms. U-boats, with their cover from long-range He-177s, still prowl, but Allied carriers and Catalinas hunt them relentlessly. Naval aviation evolves British Sea Hurricanes giving way to Fireflies, folding wings for carrier ops. One tale from a swordfish pilot, those antiquated biplanes that crippled Bismarck in real history, might play out again here against Italian battleships in the Med-Dot as Winter 45 fades. The end nears. Berlin's defenses crack under round-the-clock bombing, B-29s joining the fray from English fields. Their pressurized cabins letting crews fly high above most interceptors. Luftwaffe remnants fight valiantly, but fuel weight, with Soviet trade possibly cut if tensions rise starts to bite. Hitler, bunkered, rants about wonder weapons, but the skies belong to the Allies. Mustangs roam free, ground spotting for infantry, their presence a morale booster. From declassified signals intelligence, we know German commanders despaired at the air disparity. Here, it comes later, but inevitably, post-war ripples fascinate. Without a devastated Russia, the Cold War simmers differently, perhaps a three-power world. With Stalin's empire intact, aviation advances leap captured jets accelerate programs. The Mustang influencing designs like the F-86 Sabre. But the human touch lingers. Reunions of pilots, Axis and Allied, sharing beers and stories. Realizing they were all just kids in machines, we're nearing the climax of this epic what-if. Folks, and if it stirred your imagination like it has mine after decades of these tales, let's wrap this up strong. Hit subscribe to catch more history adventures. Like the video, comment your favorite alternate twist, and share with friends who'd love this dive into the past. Together, we honor those sky warriors. Now, as the dust settles in this alternate WWII, let's reflect on how it all might conclude. With the P-51 Mustang galloping into Legend. In the final months, say spring 46 if it drags, the Allies storm the Reichstag, paratroopers dropping under Mustang cover. Reminiscent of real market garden, but successful, German jets make last stands, but outnumbered Allied P-80 shooting stars, rushed from prototypes, join the fray, their straight wings slicing the air. Lockheed reports detail their teething issues, but in combat, they prove worthy. Dogfights over the rubble, pilots ejecting into enemy lines, rescued or captured in tales of daring. If the bomb drops that man on Nuremberg, perhaps the war ends in atomic fire. Skies empty, but for fallout, or conventional victory, with surrenders in May 46. Europe partitions differently, no Yalta divide. Maybe a united Germany under Allied watch, Russia looming neutral but armed. Aviation's evolution accelerates. Without Eastern losses, more German engineers survive, their knowledge seeding NATO jets. The Mustang, versatile steed, serves in recon roles post-war. Its legacy as the war winner solidified. Pilot memoirs flood shelves, like those of Bud Anderson, Triple Ace, recounting chases that saved bombers. But let's linger on the Mustang's magic. Born from British need, that NA-73 prototype flew in 1940, evolving with the Merlin to dominate. In this alternate, it's the equalizer. Its 1,695 HP engine pushing it to victories against odds. Engineering Marvel bubble canopy, 6 guns, range to Berlin and back. Veterans I've known speak of it fondly, a reliable friend in chaos. As peace dawns. The Mustang fades from combat but not memory, gracing airshows, symbolizing freedom's flight. In our real history, it flew in Korea. Here, perhaps longer, guarding against Soviet shadows. What a bird, sleek, deadly, enduring. And so, in this what if where Hitler skips Russia, the world turns differently, but the skies remind us, courage soars eternal. The Mustang's legacy? It's the heartbeat of those who flew, a testament to human ingenuity amid horror, whispering tales of what might have been. Now, as we head toward the war's close in this alternate saga, let's explore the final pushes and that lingering aviation magic that makes these stories timeless. By the time 1945 rolls around in this timeline, the Allies have paid dearly for every mile. But they're closing the noose on Germany. The absence of an Eastern front means the Wehrmacht has more divisions to throw into the West. Fortified lines like the Siegfried with extra anti-aircraft guns, turning the approach into a gauntlet for Allied bombers. I've looked at maps from SHAF headquarters, declassified now, showing how planners agonized over those defenses. Here, they're denser, forcing more tactical air support from the 9th and 2nd Tactical Air Forces. P-47s and Typhoons diving low to blast bunkers. Their pilots dodging 88mm flak that lights up the sky like deadly fireworks. The strategic bombing campaign. That hammer on Germany's industrial anvil intensifies, but at higher cost. In real history, by 45, the Luftwaffe was down to scraping the barrel for pilots and planes. Here, With no Barbarossa to consume for 1,000 aircraft in 1941 alone per Luftwaffe Quarterly reports the defense is robust. B-20 for liberators from the 15th Air Force, flying from Italy, face interceptions by Do-335 files. Those push-pull engine beasts that hit for 174 miles per hour. Per Dornier test data, bomber gunners blaze away, but losses climb. Crews parachuting into occupied territory. Some joining resistance groups in stories of espionage and escape that could fill books. Focus on the Mustang, since it's the star in my eyes. The P-51B and C models, with their packed guns and drop tanks, evolve faster in this world. Perhaps with cannon upgrades tested in real British trials. Pilot training ramps up American schools, like Randolph Field churning out more graduates. Their first solos in AT-6 Texans leading to the real thing. A personal anecdote from my years. I once met a Mustang pilot at an air show, his hands gesturing the loops and rolls, voice cracking on lost comrades. In this alternate, those losses are heavier, but the victory's sweeter, like when a squadron shoots down a swarm of jets over Leipzig. Using team tactics honed in endless patrols, the Pacific Theater, meanwhile, feels the pull. With Europe demanding more, the US Navy's carrier air groups get fewer replacements, making battles like Light Gulf even more knife-edge. F-6F Hellcats, rugged as they are, face kamikazes in greater numbers if Japan, inspired by German resilience, holds out. Admiral Nimitz's reports detail the strain. Here, perhaps extra Mustangs shipped to the Pacific for land-based support. Their versatility shining in island-hopping. Back in Europe, if Stalin enters, the air war explodes into chaos. Red Air Force formations, with pay-to bombers and La-5 fighters, clash with Luftwaffe over the Vistula. Declassified NKVD files hint at Soviet air doctrine, emphasizing mass. Here, it overwhelms. Allied pilots, used to friendly skies, suddenly scan for red stars. Perhaps friendly fire incidents adding tragedy. Or if neutral, Stalin builds, his MiG designs advancing. Setting up a colder Cold War, with their races over Berlin. Ground support aviation takes a bow. The Il-2 in Soviet hands, or the Ju-87 in German, but for allies. The P-47 with its 8 guns and bombs, dubbed the Jug for its shape, pounds enemy troops. Engineering reports from Republic Aviation show its radial engine could take hits and keep flying. Stories of pilots limping home on fumes abound. As Berlin beckons, the final air umbrella unfolds. C-47s drop supplies, protected by Mustangs circling like hawks. German night fighters, like the Me-410 with radar, make last raids. But rough mosquitoes hunt them down, wooden frames evading detection. The bomb shadow hangs. If used on Europe, B-29s from the 20th Air Force, modified for shorter runs, deliver it. Project documents show the silver plate B-29s ready. Imagine the ethical debates in Washington. For example. Now, as we head toward the war's close in this alternate saga, let's explore the final pushes and that lingering aviation magic that makes these stories timeless. By the fall of 1945 in this timeline, where the Eastern Front never opens its jaws. The Allies are finally cracking the nut of Germany's core. But it's a slow, bloody crack, with every factory town and river crossing fought over, like the last scrap of bread in a prison camp. The Ruhr, that smoky heart of Nazi industry, becomes a cauldron of fire-allied bombers pounding day and night. But the Luftwaffe, still packing punch without those millions of men and machines lost to Russian winters, puts up a wall of steel in the sky. I've pored over declassified USAAF mission reports from the time, the kind that detail every bomb dropped and every plane that didn't come back. And in this what if, those reports would read like horror stories, with loss rates spiking as German radar-guided flak and night fighters like the Ju-388, a high-altitude beast that never saw much action in our world. Rake the formations. Picture the 8th Air Force launching 1,000-bomber raids, B-17s and B-24s droning through the clouds, their crews bundled against the cold at 25,000 feet, oxygen masks frosting over. In real history, by 45, escorts like the Mustang turned those raids into one-way beatings for the Germans. But here, with extra FW-190D long noses and ANTOR-150 to high-altitude fighters prototypes rushed into production, per Focke-Wulf Engineering logs the interceptors swarm thicker. Pilots on both sides push their machines to breaking point, vapor trails looping like tangled yarn. One battle account I love comes from the 357th Fighter Group, the Yoxford Boys, whose Mustangs in real WWI claimed over 600 kills. In this alternate, they might top 800, dueling jets over the Rhine, their Merlins screaming as they dive to save the bombers. It's the stuff of legends. Those split-second decisions roll left to evade cannon fire, throttle up to close the gap, squeeze the trigger, and watch the enemy spin earthward in flames. The ground push mirrors the air frenzy. Montgomery's 21st Army Group slugs it out in the north, while Bradley's boys in the center face panzers reinforced without eastern diversions. Air support is Kirov Typhoons with their for cannons and rockets hammering Tiger tanks. But facing more Germans, 129 ground attack planes. Those ugly ducklings with 75mm guns that could crack a Sherman like an egg. From pilot memoirs like those in Typhoon Pilot by Desmond Scott, you get the raw feel of low-level runs, dirt kicking up from blasts, the jolt of hits on your own plane. Here, those runs are deadlier, with Luftwaffe cover turning valleys into shooting galleries. Yet the Allies adapt, using forward air controllers in jeeps, radioing targets to circling fighters, a tactic honed in real Normandy, but perfected here out of necessity. Let's not overlook the role of reconnaissance aviation. Those unsung heroes snapping photos that win wars. P-38 Lightnings with cameras instead of guns zip over enemy lines, dodging flak, their twin booms humming. Lockheed reports detail how the F-5 variant, a photo recon Mustang cousin, flew unarmed at 400 miles per hour. In this world, they spot German build-ups earlier, preventing surprises. Imagine a pilot like John Hofke, who in real history flew 90 for recon missions, adding more in this dragged-out fight. his films revealing jet airfields for bombing runs. As winter grips 45, 46, the war teeters. If Stalin pounces now, his timing perfect with Germany weakened. The Red Horde rolls KV tanks and Katyushas, covered by swarms of Los-7 fighters, which outclimbed most Germans per Soviet test data. The air clash over Poland would be epic. Me-60 versus Sturmovix, losses staggering. Declassified Stavka orders show Stalin's caution. Here, he strikes, forcing a hasty allied Soviet pact. Mustangs painting red stars for joint ops in a bizarre twist. Pilot exchanges happen, Americans training on yaks, sharing laughs over vodka. Bridging ideologies in the cockpit. Or if the bear slumbers, the Allies bear the burden alone. American production peaks Willow Run factories spitting out B-24s every hour, but redirected to Europe. The air war turns to interdiction, Mustangs strafing trains. Their pilots low enough to see faces in the cars. From battle logs of the 354th Pioneer Mustang Group, first to fly P-51s in Europe, you sense the exhaustion. Sorties blurring into one long buzz of engines and guns. The Mediterranean cleanup lingers too. With Axis hold on Africa and the Middle East, Allied forces island hop from Sicily to Greece. Facing Italian-fired G-55s, fine fighters underrated in history. RAF fighters torpedo ships, but under heavier air opposition. One story from a Beaufort pilot's memoir describes ditching in the sea after a hit. Rescued by submariners, here such dunks multiply. Espionage from the air adds spice. OSS drops agents behind lines using Lysanders, those short takeoff wonders. While German R-130 for jets recon Allied ports, their speed defying interception until meteors arrive. By spring 46, Berlin's in sight. The final offensive, a megaloverlord in reverse, with gliders and C-46 commandos dropping divisions. Covered by a canopy of fighters, Luftwaffe's last aces Hartmann, roll rack kills, but it's futile. Engineering marvels like the Bailey Bridge span rivers under fire, air cover ensuring they stand. The atomic option, if Truman green lights it for Europe. Modified Lancasters or B-29s deliver, skies clearing for the mushroom cloud. Moral weight crushes, but ends the slaughter. Human tales abound wax typing reports. Ground crews arming planes in rain, the backbone. I've heard veterans recall the smell of Avgas, the camaraderie. Here, it lasts longer, bonds deeper. As surrender flags wave, the world exhales. No Potsdam divide, perhaps a softer peace, Russia trading but isolated. Aviation booms, jets everywhere, space race early. We've traversed this vast alternate landscape, and as we near the end. If you've enjoyed this journey through the could-have-beens, do one last thing for an old storyteller. Subscribe for more epic histories. Like this video, comment what you'd change in this what-if, and share it far and wide with your circle of history enthusiasts. It's been a thrill sharing it with you. Now, to close on that reflective note, let's turn to the P-51 Mustang's enduring legacy. The true star that soared through it all. The Mustang. What a machine. What a symbol. Born in 1940 from a British request to North American aviation. It started as a humble fighter, but became the finest all-round piston-engined warrior of the war, with over 15,000 built, escorting bombers to Berlin and back on those long-range missions that turned the tide. In real history, as detailed in books like Robert F. Doerr's P-51 Mustang, it combined American airframe with the British Merlin engine, hitting speeds of 437 miles per hour. Its 6.50 cals shredding foes. Pilot memoirs like Mustang Ace by Robert S. Johnson paint vivid pictures of dogfights where its maneuverability saved lives, racking up aces among the Tuskegee Airmen and beyond. Engineering reports highlight its laminar flow wings reducing drag. Battle accounts from the National WWII Museum show how it cut bomber losses, from 60 per mission to mere handfuls. In this alternate where the skies were even fiercer, the Mustang would have been the equalizer, its legacy amplified as the bird that broke the Luftwaffe's back, inspiring post-war jets and reminding us that in the vast what-ifs of history, human ingenuity and courage always take flight. Asterisk.